American wedding. It's big, it's white, it's romantic, it's a little out of control. From the dress to the bouquet, to the kiss, to the reception, weddings draw us together, bring us to our feet, and move us to tears. Face it, no matter where we come from, no matter who we are, Americans love a wedding.
To see a couple with two open hearts, it's a beautiful thing. We all need it, we all want it.
It's really a very personal declaration by two people of their love for each other, their affection, and their desire to celebrate. And I think that's what makes weddings such an incredible moment in one's life.
Today's wedding is about expressing your personal sense of style, making a statement of style to your new family, your new friend, and telling them who you are and what you're about, and having fun at the same time.
That was great! You did it! All right. The wedding is part of our collective psyche.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
Hollywood knows it.
Here's wedding of
Socialites revel in it.
Gloria Gould.
Elvis Presley.
Even Elvis did it.
Bridegroom at last.
Whether it's a fairy tale wedding or a traditional one, today's weddings afford us an escape from the everyday to a place of magic, if only for a day. Hello, I'm Joan London. When people get married today, they come together with ceremony and ritual, and very often we slave rituals without any idea of where they came from. Why do brides wear white? Who started that? Why a diamond engagement ring? What's wrong with a ruby? Why does a groom have a best man? Isn't the groom the best man at his own wedding? How did these traditions get started, and what do they mean? We'll find out that and more, but this much is already clear. Sometimes simple, sometimes opulent, almost always painstakingly planned, the American wedding has come to set the standard recognized and copied around the world. One other thing, the American wedding today is also big business.
The drama starts here.
On the catwalks of bridal expos around the country, drama plus fashion equals big money. The approximately 2.4 million American couples who head down the aisle each year have made marriage a marketing paradise.
Wedding celebration. And now we invite you to return to our exhibition booth area.
A bride can see everything from insurance for their first home and wedding gowns, photography, wedding cakes, honeymoon destinations. Anything that has anything at all, even remotely to do with the wedding, can be found here at the Great Bridal Expo.
We're the world leader in nonstick cookware.
The U.S. wedding business says "I do" to $70 billion annually. That's almost 10 times the gross domestic product of Kenya, and double the amount generated only 20 years ago.
Advertisers know that this year, the year that you're planning your wedding, if you never buy another lipstick in your life, you're going to buy it that year. If you never buy pretty underwear in your life, you're going to buy it that year.
With a case like this and everything?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Bridal magazines as big as phone books, wedding guides, websites, TV shows allow engaged couples to read, watch, log on to, and tune into a mind-numbing amount of information on how to make that special day just that much more special and expensive.
I want a wedding in a big church with bridesmaids and flower girls, a lot of ushers in tailcoats, reporters and photographers.
The average wedding for 200 costs nearly $20,000. Double that if a couple lives in a city such as Los Angeles or New York. And still, some brides and grooms spend as much as $50,000 for a celebration with half that number of guests. No wonder the mother of the bride cries.
With champagne and caviar.
There's so much Wall Street money that some weddings are outrageous. It's not even the old, beautiful wedding at the Plaza anymore. It's like, to be a wedding guest, not to mention a bridesmaid, is like thousands of dollars if you stay in the hotels that they recommend and fly first class, which everybody does. I mean, people's weddings are maybe not so much more opulent, but incredibly expensive today.
Weddings are really hip again. You know, once Vogue has a wedding issue and Glamour has a wedding issue, well, then everybody's talking about weddings. And it's people's day to shine. It's their, day to be a star, and people are basically taking that and running with it.
And yet today, more than half of all couples foot at least part of the bill themselves.
Couples these days are in general probably making more money than their parents are, and so once they're paying for the wedding and planning for the wedding themselves, they can say, hey, it's my party, I'm planning it, I want to play by whatever rules I want to.
Nearly half of all couples include at least one person who has been married before. They're not as young as they used to be either. 40 years ago, the average bride was barely 20, her groom 2 years older. Not in the 21st century.
They're more sophisticated. Their careers came first. So they've traveled. They have a better palate. They've dined in good restaurants. They know very distinctly what they want.
What they want, apparently, is for their wedding to stand out. And depending on their resources, they're willing to pay for it. For the 1999 wedding of her daughter, Melissa, comedian Joan Rivers recreated a winter garden from Tsarist Russia, all for an estimated cool $2 million.
Joan Rivers, she said she wanted to create this one night when it was just so unreal and so out there and beyond anybody's daily experience that they would have this sense of that's what love is.
There was no winter garden in sight when Michael Douglas married Catherine Zeta-Jones at the Plaza Hotel in New York, but it still reportedly cost close to $2 million. The invitations alone totaled $75,000 for the 1995 wedding of socialite Marie Chantal Miller to the ex-Crown Prince of Greece. The overall tab, an estimated $8 million. But if today's weddings cost a lot of money, please remember that for years, marriage itself was nothing if not a financial arrangement.
Women were to be bartered away or sold away or given away in marriage. Fathers did not want the responsibility of having an unmarried daughter to support for the rest of their lives. So it was imperative for fathers to make deals with eligible bachelors.
In the 19th century, an unmarried woman was a spinster, so named because a young woman had to spin enough bedding and linen for her future household before she could marry.
A spinster was a lady 25 and older, and in fact, when you were 30, you were called a thornback, which is a hideous word. So you didn't want to be a spinster. If you were close to being a spinster, you would maybe take a terrible offer to marry someone that you really could care less about. But you would do this just for the sake of being married. Several sisters in Vermont were so afraid of being called spinsters that they actually each bought a diamond ring for one another, and they gave it to each other. And so when someone would ask them, "Where did you get your ring?" Lady Jane would coyly say, "Someone gave it to me."
Women who did marry had better hope they were happy.
Divorce was not an option back then. Separation was a horrible thing. A woman living alone just could not really make it in this world, and she didn't own anything. She didn't own her own property. She didn't even own her own children. So without a husband, someone else would raise her own children.
So much for love. Justices of the peace performed the wedding ceremony in colonial New England. But in 1692, members of the clergy were made officials of the state so they could perform legal weddings. Marriage was little more than a housekeeping arrangement, with the added benefit of potential little helpers to come. In fact, by the beginning of the 19th century, some men were making sure in advance that wives could fulfill their potential.
There were many brides pregnant in the early 19th century before their weddings. It was said that 1/3 of all brides were actually with child. Of course, when the Victorian age started, in 1840, that was all taboo. You could not be pregnant before marriage. It was a terrible, terrible thing.
They called it the Age of Innocence, but our nation's first trendsetters, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, and the Morgans, also gave us the age of opulence, especially in weddings.